I don't get it. Just one guy?
Maybe this guy is the meanest, baddest, most deadly ninja we've ever seen. Or not.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Arcade Wrath of the Mutants is a beat-em-up game developed by Cradle Games and published by GameMill Entertainment.
No! God, please, no! 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 No!
This game is a re-experience, as they put it, of the 2017 arcade classic of the same name. Now let's just start off by saying, is this game worth it? Well, for an arcade beat-em-up that you can put a quarter into the machine and have fun, yes it is. But for a game that is $30 on consoles and $25 on PC, at least until May 8th, which then will also be $30, and all of that for just 1 hour of content? Absolutely not. This game is grossly overpriced and gets more and more boring, in my opinion, as the game goes on. And speaking of the price, this seems to be a real trend with the games that GameMill publishes and puts out. Minimal effort at a bloated price. I'm sure the developers probably also had minimal time to make the game, as that is also a trend for GameMill based on what an ex-Iguanabee employee said about them during their Rise of Kong development. The game does include the voice actors from the 2012 show, but they said the same lines over and over and over and over again. Because of that, I'm unsure if they recorded new lines or if they just took lines from the show and placed them into the game. Also, in the only cutscene in the game, there was literally no voice acting at all, which is weird because in the original arcade game, the scene was entirely voiced, so I guess re-recording those lines just cost too much money.
Time for some payback.
Yeah, take that, Shredhead.
Thanks for the save, guys.
And thank you for the assist, April.
Now these are GameMill cutscenes I'm used to. No voicing. They could have just voiced the lines. No, just still pictures. The gameplay for the most part is fine, but it pretty much is a worse version of the combat in Shredder's Revenge and even Turtles in Time. The problem with the game is it only really has a 1-button 3-attack combo that you'll be pushing over and over and over again the entire game. And yes, there are some special abilities that you can pick up, such as being able to spin around on your shell, taking out enemies, and even calling backup for help if you pick up the ability laying on the ground. You can also throw objects at enemies like coolers or barrels, and that's all you will pretty much be doing for an hour, and then you win. In my opinion, if you had the ability to add 3 levels to the game, then you should have the ability to add more combos and more abilities, and if I knew it was going to be a worse version of Shredder's Revenge and Turtles in Time, I would have just went and played them instead. The game also has 2 to 4 player offline co-op only because I guess they were too lazy to buy servers. And yes, I know the arcade game would obviously be local co-op only because you have to be at the machine to play it together, but this is not the arcade game. This is a console and PC version of the game, and it is 2024. People nowadays may both be at their PC or consoles at their home, but not always at their friend's house. And I'm not saying the game shouldn't have local co-op. I'm perfectly fine with that feature existing, especially for brothers and sisters who want to play the game together, or even friends that go to each other's houses and want to play the game. But to not have online co-op for the game in 2024 is kind of inexcusable in my opinion, especially since games like Shredder's Revenge that came out just last year had online co-op. In terms of the story, you have to fight through all the levels and take out various bosses, which I'm not a huge fan of what the 2012 show did to some of the villains like Razor and Bebop, for example. Now, of course, this isn't the game's fault, but I just had to say it, and don't even get me started on the removal of Cowabunga. But regardless, you had to fight through all of the bosses to be able to fight Shredder and save April, which is an easy enough story, but since they didn't tell that story the entire game, even though there are scenes in the 2012 arcade game showing April getting kidnapped, you don't really know the point of the game until you beat the game and get the final unvoiced cutscene, unless you had played the arcade game previously. Like, they couldn't even be asked to put the most basic of cutscenes that already existed into the game to tell their story. So while some people will feel nostalgia for either the 2012 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles show or the 2017 arcade game, and I understand that, some people have to realize that selling this 1-hour port with a couple added levels, 6 total, for $30 is inexcusable on so many levels. Like, there are people out there that will talk so much shit about a 100-hour game being $70 and will turn around and defend this 1-hour game being $30 because of nostalgia. We have to be able to hold these publishers and developers to higher standards, otherwise they will keep doing this and gouging our pockets for games that should cost $10 at most. The music during the levels don't even come close to matching the other games of this same style. In my opinion, the music in Turtles in Time is unmatched in terms of Ninja Turtle games. It makes the fights through the levels and in the bosses that much more cool. Shredder's Revenge also had really good music. This game doesn't even have the theme song from the 2012 show, in a game based on the characters from that show. And it's not like they couldn't add it. They are working with Nickelodeon for this game, so I'm sure they could have very easily added it, but they said nah, even that is too much work. Now, I had to take a detour here and just talk about GameMill Entertainment themselves, because in my opinion, they are the worst publisher in gaming. And I know some may say Ubisoft or EA, and they are also bad. I'm not discrediting that. But GameMill takes all of these licenses that we know and love and uses that love against us to make low-effort, low-budget games that usually look trash. This game looked fine graphically because it was a port of an arcade game. Otherwise, I have no doubt what it would look like if they tried to make a Ninja Turtles game from scratch, because there's proof of what that would look like when you look at the other games that they've made. But they will take these low-effort games and charge ridiculous prices like King Kong costing $39.99 and The Walking Dead Destinies and Avatar The Quest for Balance costing $49.99. And all of those games received massive backlash for how terrible they looked and how low effort they were. And if you go look on console and on Steam, those games are still full price. GameMill doesn't care about anything but money at any cost, even if that means fucking us over as consumers. And while GameMill doesn't make the game personally, they do seem to underfund the development of the game and put the developers in a bad place by only giving them a year in most cases to make the games. And that is just not how game development should go. They don't give the developers the time they need to make a good game, because they follow greed above all else. I've talked about this before, but license holders should stop shelling their licenses out to this terrible publisher that doesn't care about anything but themselves. They don't care about gamers, they don't care about doing justice to licenses, they don't care about making a competent game. They just don't care, and we as fans of those licenses deserve better. All of that being said, TMNT Arcade Wrath of the Mutants isn't as insulting as the other 3 games I mentioned before, but what it was still a cash grab. A $30 game with an hour of content is inexcusable in every way, and while I wasn't insulted by the game in terms of gameplay, even though it was very repetitive, it did leave me quickly wanting to get a refund, as it just wasn't worth that price. And that is why I am giving TMNT Wrath of the Mutants a 4 out of 10. It is just a game that exists, a very forgettable game, and a very forgettable experience that people will forget in a few weeks if they haven't already. Now, I usually end these reviews in a positive way by saying I hope GameMill learns from this and makes better games in the future, but they won't. They have made it perfectly clear that they don't care about giving the consumers good experiences or giving the consumer what they want for a decent price. And they don't even care about their developers. They just care about themselves and their wallets, and that is ultimately the most infuriating thing about all of their games. And since they will probably never be held accountable, expect more terrible games from them in the future. But what did you think of the game? Did you like it more or less than I did? Let me know in the comment section below. But that is going to do it for this review. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.